The teaching of American civics in our schools faces a grave new risk. That's according to the initial signatories of the new group called the Civics Alliance. One of the members of that group is Dr. Terry Stoops. He is the director of the Center for Effective Education at the John Locke Foundation. And Terry, you have signed on to this group, which was started by the National Association of Scholars. Why?
Well, I think that there is a recognition of a need to restore good social studies education and civics education in our public schools. And this not only includes our K-12 schools, but in colleges and universities. And so this is really about bringing together the resources of individuals and scholars toward an effort to try to improve social studies education in the nation. And we all come from different points of view, from those of us who have signed on initially and those who will continue to sign on to the effort, recognizing that there is a real need. And not only that, that our nation depends on an educated citizenry. And if we don't have that, then we really risk ruin as a nation. And I think that is probably the underlying concern here that really thrusts the National Association of Scholars into this arena.
As this group was announced, there was a statement that says proponents of programs such as Action Civics seek to turn the traditional subject of civics into a recruitment tool of the progressive left. Is this a legitimate concern?
Yeah, it absolutely is. And not only Action Civics, but if you look at the organizations that are behind many of the efforts to include Action Civics in civics education, social studies education programs, Zinn Education Project, Teaching Tolerance, you find that there is a huge network, very wealthy network of individuals and organizations that are trying to instill this Action Civics framework in public schools. And so the recognition that how successful that they've been so far in getting Action Civics-oriented civics education in our schools really necessitates a strong response, and I feel that's what the Civics Alliance is going to provide, a strong response to those that want to make civics action the norm rather than the exception.
This is a national group and it has a national perspective, but one of the reasons that you're getting involved, I suspect, is because North Carolina has seen this debate play out in our own public education system.
That's right. We are really ground zero for the debate over civics education and social studies education, with the debate, almost a two-year debate over our social studies standards. As many people know, the lieutenant governor and others came out strongly against proposed social studies standards that would take those standards into a left-wing sort of orientation, having a emphasis on the difficult experiences in American history without recognizing the triumphs. And I think that was an effort, an inspired effort by those on the left to try to ensure that we have an action civics type framework in our social studies standards in North Carolina, and that filters down into every classroom in this nation or in the state. So, I think that once we recognize how important it is to North Carolina, we can recognize that getting involved and making sure that this doesn't occur in other states is absolutely critical.
There is a portion of the opening statement from the Civics Alliance that says, "We," meaning the signatories, you and others, "we oppose all racism and support traditional American pluralism, e pluribus unum, out of many, one. These beliefs are not those of the radical new civics activists, which espouse identity politics with overlapping ideologies of critical race theory, multiculturalism, and so-called anti-racism." A lot of those terms have been floating about recently. Are they ones that we need to be concerned about?
Well, absolutely. And there was an important story that's been circulating that appeared in City Journal and elsewhere about a critical race theory program that was in Wake County that was offered by the Wake County Schools to teachers in the county, providing a critical race theory perspective on the dynamics of student engagement. And I think that is just really the tip of the iceberg. I mean, those are the instances that we know of this type of action civics being incorporated into teacher training and professional development. That doesn't even include some of the areas in which critical race theory appears in the curriculum, which is mainly overseen by the schools, the districts, and the teachers themselves. So we're only looking at the tip of the iceberg with critical race theory and some of the other things that really seek to divide Americans, rather than to assume that we're one nation with many differences and that we can all get along despite those differences.
If civics education works the way it should, how do you think it should work?
Well, I think we need to recognize that there are diverse perspectives. I think they need to be discussed in the classroom, and we have to recognize that students need a strong foundation in knowledge about social studies and history and geography and all the various aspects of social studies. So it really starts with providing a solid foundation and knowledge about our political system, about our history, and about the other dynamics that we really want students to know about before they vote for candidates, because really that's where civics manifests itself, is when a student takes the knowledge and their awareness of current events into the voting booth and voting for candidates. So ideally, we would have students that have a strong knowledge and foundation in history and civics, and they would be able to demonstrate that knowledge in the voting booth.
The new group, once again, is called the Civics Alliance. One of its earliest signatories is Dr. Terry Stoops. He is the director of the Center for Effective Education at the John Locke Foundation. Thanks, Terry.
Thank you.